She was fading out until his tears hit her skin. The night sky above the shattered metropolis shimmers with the afterglow of distant explosions. Jagged towers, half collapsed and burning, stand silhouetted against a wash of neon clouds and drifting embers. Lucas, knees trembling beneath the weight of exhaustion and adrenaline, picks his way through the rubble-strewn avenue, boots crunching on twisted steel and shards of glass. Every step is cautious, as if the world might collapse under him at any moment. His breath hitches with each heartbeat. The air is thick with the acrid scent of burning metal, scorched earth, and the unmistakable copper tang of blood. Somewhere to his left, a fire flares with a hungry roar, casting stark shadows across broken storefronts and the remnants of an alien dropship. Lucas's hands, stained and shaking, clutch his battered medkit, a medic's last hope in a place where hope feels in short supply. He moves between bodies, some human, some not, forcing himself to check each one for a pulse, for a sign of life. It is a ritual that is part mercy, part penance. A faint moan draws his attention, a sound both guttural and raw. He sweeps his flashlight across the debris and freezes. There, half buried beneath a fallen support beam, lies a woman unlike any he's ever seen outside of propaganda reels. Her lime-green skin glistens with sweat and blood, athletic muscles tensed as she struggles to breathe. Her long, purple hair fans out in the dust, streaked with ash and something dark. The glossy black of her eyes reflects the firelight, but her irises, pale and glowing, flicker weakly behind heavy lids. Lucas hesitates, memories of warnings and stories told around barrack fires clashing with the reality before him. She's clearly an enemy, and yet her chest rises and falls, ragged and desperate. Her left arm, marked with intricate swirling patterns, symbols he does not recognize, rests protectively over her torso. Royalty, perhaps, or something close to it. A sharp motion breaks his trance. The alien's hand fumbles for the weapon holstered at her belt, a curved blade, gleaming even in the dirty light. Lucas's instincts kick in. He kneels, placing one hand gently but firmly over hers, feeling the feverish heat of her skin beneath his glove. "Easy," he murmurs, voice barely steady. "You're badly hurt. Let me help you." Her eyes snap open, sudden clarity burning in their depths. She bares her teeth, jaw clenched, but she cannot muster the strength to push him away. "Why?" The word is little more than a broken rasp, brittle as glass. For a heartbeat, Lucas falters. Why? Because he is a medic, sworn to heal. Because the blood pooling beneath her is just as real as anyone else's. Because in this moment, hatred feels small. He swallows, pulling the medkit open with practiced hands. The familiar clatter of instruments grounds him. He reaches for a coagulator patch, pressing it to the deep gash running from her ribs down to her hip. Her blood is not red, but deep and shimmering, like oil slicked with starlight. The wound bubbles, then slows. She shudders, and his gloved fingers tremble as he brushes away debris from her cheek. His eyes sting with exhaustion and something else, a grief too heavy to name. A single tear escapes, tracing a clean line through the grime on his face before falling, unnoticed, onto her cheek. She blinks, startled by the contact. Lucas draws back, uncertain. He expects a snarl, another attempt at the weapon, but instead, he sees something impossible. Where his tear touched her skin, the color brightens, almost luminous, the sickly pallor giving way to vibrant green. The torn flesh at the edge of her wound shudders, knitting together with unnatural speed. Her chest rises more easily, the hitch in her breath fading. Her eyes widen, suspicion and shock mingling in their depths. "What did you do?" she demands, her voice stronger, sharper. I don't know," Lucas stammers, staring at his own hands as if they might hold the answer. The alien pushes herself upright, bracing on one elbow, disbelief etched across her face. She peels away the bandage to reveal skin that is already healing. Is this something your people can do? Her tone is edged with fear, with awe. No, Lucas says, shaking his head. I've never seen it before. I swear. She studies him, really studies him, as if searching for the trick, the betrayal, the reason. The city burns around them, but in this instant, the war is elsewhere. You saved me, she says, wary, voice trembling at the edges. Why? Lucas hesitates, meeting her gaze. Because you're hurt. That's my job. His answer seems to unsettle her more than any threat could. She looks away, swallowing hard, fingers tracing the markings on her arm. Your name? She asks quietly. Lucas. The word sounds foreign in his mouth. She hesitates, then offers hers. Zira. A sudden shout echoes through the ruins, punctuated by the unmistakable crunch of boots on gravel. Lucas tenses, glancing over his shoulder. His squad, no doubt sweeping the ruins, searching for survivors or enemies. Their loyalty is not as complicated as his. Zira pushes herself to her feet, swaying, the faintest curve of a smile on her lips. If they find me, they'll kill me. Lucas nods, voice low, urgent. Yes. She searches his face, eyes bright in the flickering firelight. Will you betray me? There is no plea in her tone, only a test. He shakes his head, fiercely. No. At the edge of the shadows she pauses, pressing her palm to the spot where his tear had fallen. Maybe this changes everything, she murmurs, almost to herself. In the next heartbeat, she melts into the darkness, silent and swift. Lucas is left kneeling in the ruins, heart pounding, a single moment echoing louder than the war around him. 2 days later, Lucas found himself pressed against cold, cracked tiles in the shadowy heart of a derelict transport hub. The wind howled through shattered windows, carrying with it the distant staccato of gunfire and the sharp tang of ozone. He was cornered, every muscle taut, as the sickly green glow of an alien weapon illuminated the face he'd been unable to forget. Zira stood before him, her eyes narrowed and intense, but her lips parted with the uncertainty of someone acting out of necessity rather than conviction. The weapon she held, sleek, humming, and unmistakably deadly, cast strange patterns on the walls, revealing the scattered bodies of his squad slumped in the gloom. They breathed, shallow and unconscious, arranged with a care that belied Zira's reputation as a ruthless enemy. You're coming with me, human, she said, voice low and commanding. Yet beneath the order, a tremor lingered, an uncertainty that flickered in her pale, luminous irises. Lucas's heart hammered in his chest. Zira, he breathed, taking an involuntary step back, as the memory of their last encounter surged between them. What are you doing here? She gestured sharply with the weapon. Move. He raised his hands, surrendering to the inevitable, and allowed her to guide him past the limp forms of his comrades, their weapons scattered and useless. Zira led him through the station's labyrinthine corridors, through pools of dirty water, past rusted ticket kiosks and flickering signs in broken languages. The further they went, the more the city's pulse faded behind them, replaced by the deep hush of abandonment. When they finally emerged from the tunnels, the city's jagged skeleton loomed behind them, outlined against a sky that glowed with impossible colors. The world out here was wild, untamed, tangled brambles and shattered pylons reclaimed by nature. The last light of day bled violet and gold across the horizon, painting Zira's skin with shifting hues. She stopped in a clearing, lowering her weapon, but never taking her eyes from Lucas. He could see the wariness in her stance, the way she held herself braced for betrayal. For a long moment, neither spoke, Then Zira broke the silence, voice barely above a whisper. "What did you do to me?" Lucas shook his head, searching her face for some trace of the wound he'd healed, some proof that what he'd witnessed hadn't been a fever dream born of exhaustion and guilt. "I don't have powers," he said, the words tumbling out in a rush. "I'm just a medic. I've never seen anything like that before." Her brows knitted together. "When your tear touched me, I felt calm," she said, almost as if confessing a secret. "We're taught that emotion is a flaw, that it clouds judgment and weakens resolve. But in that moment, I wasn't afraid. I wasn't angry." She hesitated, her gaze dropping. "I was just alive." Lucas watched her, something shifting inside him. "Maybe compassion is a strength," he offered quietly. She looked up sharply, her jaw set. "On my world, compassion is reserved for the young, the sick, the dying, not for warriors, not for enemies." He let the silence stretch between them, letting the weight of her words settle. "It wasn't just you who changed," he said at last. "I haven't been able to stop thinking about it. About you." Zira's weapon dipped lower, almost forgotten in her grip. "When I found your squad, I could have killed them. I should have. That's what's expected. But—" her voice faltered. "It felt wrong. That's never happened to me before." Lucas took a cautious step closer, hands still raised, palms open. "Thank you for sparing them." She regarded him, her expression caught between pride and confusion. "Are all humans like you?" she asked. He smiled, soft and rueful. "Some of us. Most aren't. Not now, at least. But I like to think it's possible." Zira's gaze lingered on him, searching for deceit, for weakness, for the fracture line where trust could be exploited. Finding none, she shook her head, a hint of a smile tugging at the corner of her mouth. "How can you fight with empathy?" Lucas shrugged, the gesture weary. "I don't know. Maybe that's the lesson. Maybe we can learn from each other." For a heartbeat they stood in stillness, the tension between them morphing into something fragile and electric. Then the distant hum of engines cut through the silence. Lucas turned, spotting the telltale gleam of search drones sweeping low over the city's edge, floodlights carving white scars through the darkness. He turned back to Zira, urgency in his voice. "If you surrender, they'll treat you. We could help you, Zira. You don't have to run." She shook her head, eyes darkening. "Your people would never see me as anything but a threat. They'd put me in a cell, or worse. I don't want that. I can't." She glanced at the horizon, then back at him. "There's another way. Let's disappear. Forget the war, the sides, the rules. No one would understand what's happening between us. Not your command, not my kin." The words hung between them, trembling with possibility and dread. Lucas's breath caught. He stared at her, the lines of resolve and fear etched in her face, the flicker of hope she tried to bury. "Zira," he whispered, the world narrowing until only she remained. She reached out, her fingers trembling as they hovered in the space between them. "You saved me," she said softly. "Let me save you now." A searchlight swept overhead, illuminating them in harsh white for a split second. Lucas saw the future in her eyes, a future wild and uncharted, but honest in a way the war had never been. The logic of conflict, of sides and orders and duty, faded before the silent pull that yanked him forward. He took her hand, her skin warm and alive against his own. Together they slipped into the shadows, the searchlights gliding past without pause, and vanished into the wilds beyond the ruined city, choosing the unknown, together. They found refuge in a network of ancient caverns, hidden far beneath the war-ravaged surface. The walls shimmered with veins of luminous crystal, casting a gentle, otherworldly glow that painted Zira's green skin and Lucas's weary features in waves of shifting color. The silence here was different, thick, almost sacred, broken only by the sound of water trickling through cracks in the stone. Zira moved ahead, her steps sure and silent, leading Lucas through winding corridors that twisted deeper into the earth. Lucas followed, his breath catching as the path opened onto a vast chamber. A clear underground pool lay at its center, its surface smooth as glass, reflecting the crystal light in undulating patterns across the ceiling. Zira knelt at the water's edge, dipping her fingers in, testing for safety. Lucas set down his pack, the straps digging into his shoulders a welcome ache compared to the tension that had gripped him since their flight from the city. They set up a makeshift camp together, gathering fallen branches and bits of dry lichen to build a small fire in a natural hollow. The ritual of survival unfolded between them in quiet, wordless coordination. Zira filled their flasks with cold, sweet water, while Lucas coaxed a flicker of flame from his emergency kit. Their hands brushed as they arranged stones around the fire, sparks jumping between skin and kindling. When they settled beside the flames, the silence was no longer awkward, but companionable. Glances lingered. The air grew warm. As night deepened, the pool's surface glowed with the soft reflection of the crystal veins overhead. Zira sat across from Lucas, her knees drawn to her chest, gaze lost in the play of light and shadow. The fire crackled gently. The strangeness of the world above seemed impossibly distant here. Zira's voice broke the hush. "Tell me about Earth," she said softly. Lucas looked up, caught off guard by the vulnerability in her tone. He drew his knees close, thinking. "It's complicated," he began. "But I remember running in the fields behind my childhood home. The grass was so tall it reached my waist. My mother grew flowers, roses, violets. On summer nights, you could hear the frogs singing in the marsh." His voice caught, and he smiled, eyes distant. It was peaceful, before everything changed. Zira leaned in, her curiosity sincere. "You always wanted to heal?" He nodded, the answer resonating through him. "It's who I am. Even as a kid, I was always patching up wounded birds, tending to the neighbor's dog when he got into fights. I never wanted to fight, not like this." His voice dropped. "I just wanted to help." She studied him, her glossy eyes reflecting the flames. "I thought compassion was a weakness," she admitted. "But I keep thinking about your tear. It didn't just heal my wound, it changed something inside me." Lucas hesitated, then reached for her hand across the fire. Zira didn't flinch. Her grip was warm, steady. "How do you mean?" he asked. Instead of answering, she turned to the nearest wall, pressing her palm flat against a jutting stone. The crystals beneath her skin brightened, and a wave of light pulsed outwards, spreading through the rock like ripples in a pond. The cavern's colors deepened and danced, answering her touch. "I feel the energy in everything now," she whispered. "The stone, the water, the fire, even you. Before I was trained to sense only threats, but now, it's like I can sense life itself." Lucas stared, entranced. He reached out and laid his palm beside hers, their fingers nearly touching. As he did, the light intensified, pulsing brighter and warmer, as if the stone recognized their shared presence. "This is something new," he murmured, awed. "Something neither of us has ever known." Zira's expression softened, her usual armor falling away. She closed her eyes, breathing in the warmth. "Since your tear touched me, I've had flashes of memory, visions that aren't my own. Ancient beings, not soldiers, but healers and nurturers. Their hands glowed with the same light, their voices gentle, their world united." Lucas listened, his heart thudding. "Do you think that's who your people once were?" She nodded, tracing the path of his tear along her cheek. I think we forgot. War made us forget. Maybe your tears awakened what was always there, buried deep. Lucas searched her face, seeing not the enemy, but the person beneath, the longing, the hope, the ache for something more. Maybe we're both remembering, he said. Maybe this, us, was always meant to happen. Their hands lingered on the stone, light weaving between their fingers. Zira's gaze flickered down, her voice barely more than breath. You make me want to be different. I don't know if I can. Lucas leaned closer, the firelight reflecting in his eyes. You already are. She smiled, a real, unguarded smile, and let her hand rest on his cheek, tracing the line of his jaw with the gentlest touch. The distance between them narrowed, breath mingling. The air seemed to thrum with energy, the crystals pulsing in time with their heartbeats. Then Zira kissed him, soft and searching at first, as if she was still learning how. Lucas melted into her, his arms winding around her waist, drawing her close. The world slipped away. Light enveloped them, blooming outwards from the place where their bodies met. The cavern itself responded, the crystals flaring, the pool shimmering with golden warmth. In that embrace, fear and loneliness dissolved, replaced by a surge of hope so fierce it left them trembling. Barriers, species, loyalties, the scars of war fell away, leaving only the electric, fragile truth of their connection. For the first time in either of their lives, they were not alone. When the light faded, they remained entwined by the fire, hearts racing, the promise of something new unfolding between them in the ancient hush of the cavern. When the last pulse of light faded from the crystals, and their breath returned to normal, Zira's expression shifted, her gaze distant, contemplative. She remained close to Lucas, their hands still entwined, but her thoughts seemed to travel far beyond the glowing chamber. The fire's embers painted her skin in gold and shadow. Lucas watched her, knowing something important was about to surface between them. Zira finally spoke, voice soft but charged with an undercurrent of urgency. I'm not the only one, Lucas. There are others among my people who are changing. We feel things now. We question what we've been told. Question the war. Her eyes searched his, vulnerability flickering beneath the strength. We hide it, of course. But there are more of us than the leaders know. We whisper in the shadows, trying to make sense of what's happening to us. Lucas nodded, understanding deepening between them. Humans have doubters too. People who see through the propaganda. Some of us have always wondered if there could be more to this than endless fighting. He looked down, fingers tightening around hers. We're just better at hiding it. Zira's lips curved in a bittersweet smile. Maybe that's how change starts. In the quiet places. In secret. She moved to the edge of the pool, kneeling on the cool stone, her reflection wavering on the water's perfect surface. With slow reverence, she dipped her hands into the pool and closed her eyes. The crystals lining the chamber began to glow brighter, their light running in veins through the walls and out into the branching tunnels. The water vibrated, and Lucas felt the gentle thrum of energy, as if the whole mountain had come awake. Zira's voice trembled, thick with awe and sorrow. This is what we lost, Lucas. Connection. Not just to each other, but to everything. The crystals flared, sending a shimmer of light from chamber to chamber, illuminating hidden alcoves and ancient carvings. We forgot what it means to be part of something larger. Lucas joined her by the water, sliding his hands in beside hers. Instantly, a sensation surged through him, an overwhelming rush of unity, as if the cavern's heart beat in time with his own. He sensed the living pulse of the planet, the history buried in every stone, the memory of peace that existed before war. He gasped, awestruck. It's like, I can feel everyone, not just us, the whole world, all the pain, but also hope, like we're woven into the same fabric. Zira nodded, tears glimmering at the corners of her eyes. If we could share this, maybe things would be different. She drew a shaky breath. But it's dangerous. The leaders, yours and mine, would hunt us for awakening others. We'd become targets. Outlaws. Lucas met her gaze, the firelight flickering between them. Then we're already fugitives, he said, voice gentle but resolute. What do we do now? Zira hesitated, her fingers tracing gentle circles in the water. Will you help me find them? The others like us. Will you risk everything to bring them together? There was a rawness in her question, a need for partnership, for something beyond survival. Lucas turned her hand over in his, considering the enormity of what she asked. His voice was steady, but his heart raced. I will, but I need something from you too. He swallowed, bearing his own vulnerability. Will you love me, Zira? Not just as part of this awakening. I need to know it's you. Just you. The question seemed to undo her. Zira's tough exterior melted, her eyes growing soft, luminous in the crystal light. I want to try, she whispered. The admission was fragile, the first tender promise in a lifetime of war. They sat together in silence, hands entwined, their bond a beacon in the darkness. The energy of the cavern pulsed gently around them, not just a hiding place now, but a sanctuary, one that hummed with possibility. They leaned into each other, foreheads touching, each drawing strength from the other. Hours passed in that hush, their whispered conversations weaving plans and dreams. They spoke of finding others, of building something new, a network of healers, peacemakers, dreamers. Of teaching their peoples to remember what it felt like to belong, to trust, to hope. But just as a faint golden light began to seep into the cavern, the ground trembled. First a subtle shiver, then a violent quake. Rocks rattled, the pool rippling with aftershocks. Outside, the thunder of engines roared, followed by the sharp crackle of blaster fire. The tunnels echoed with shouts and the metallic clash of boots on stone. Lucas leapt to his feet, scanning for their weapons, but Zira caught his arm, urgency flashing in her eyes. No, there's no time. We have to leave. Now. She pointed to a narrow passage, half concealed by a fallen column, spiraling deeper into the mountain's heart. He hesitated, looking back at their scattered belongings, the fire, the makeshift bedrolls, even his battered medkit. The realization struck him. Fighting was pointless. They could not protect what they'd built with weapons. We'll have to leave everything behind, even our weapons, he said, voice laced with regret and determination. Zira nodded, already leading the way. Let's use what we discovered, our connection. It's our only hope now. They clasped hands, pulse and purpose fused, and vanished into the dark passage, ready to face whatever waited beyond together. Soldiers stormed the cavern in a torrent of boots, shouts, and the cold gleam of weaponry. Human armor clanked against the ancient stone while alien troopers, faces obscured behind obsidian visors, swept their rifles across the crystal-lit chamber. Sparks scattered where blaster fire struck the walls, sending shards of luminous stone tumbling into the underground pool. The air was electric with fear and anticipation. Commander Hayes's voice cut through the chaos, sharp and commanding. Seize the traitor! Lucas Sutter, you are under arrest for desertion and conspiracy. His eyes locked onto Lucas, lips curled in disappointment and anger. But there was something else there too, a shadow of uncertainty. Before Lucas could speak, a ripple of dread swept the chamber. The alien forces parted as a towering figure strode into the firelight. Supreme Warden Tarek, Zira's father, his skin a deep, burnished emerald, ceremonial armor gleaming with ancestral sigils. His eyes, cold and merciless, found Zira instantly. You shame us, he thundered, his voice echoing through the crystal halls. You have surrendered yourself to corruption, betrayed your blood, your people, your birthright. He raised a hand and soldiers closed ranks, rifles trained on his daughter. Zira stood tall, chin lifted, but Lucas felt the tremor in her fingers where their hands met. Tarek's gaze flicked to their entwined hands and hardened. "You leave me no choice," Tarek declared, his tone a blade of frost. "The punishment for treason is death, yours and the humans. This ends now." For a moment, the world narrowed to the circle of soldiers, the threat of annihilation pressing in on all sides. Lucas's heart pounded. He squeezed Zira's hand, feeling the wellspring of energy that pulsed beneath their skin. He whispered, "It's time." Zira nodded, voice steady though her eyes shone with unshed tears. Together. They closed their eyes, calling forth the memory of the pool, the heartbeat of the planet, the ancient unity they had discovered. Energy surged between them, bright and alive, a force older than war or fear. Their joined hands became the axis of a new dawn. Radiant light exploded outward, a wave of pure, shimmering energy that burst from their bodies and cascaded through the cavern. The soldiers faltered, weapons lowering as the brilliance enveloped them. Human and alien alike staggered, blinking, their anger melting away under the touch of something vast and gentle. The cavern filled with gasps and cries. The light carried memories, fragments of laughter, the scent of blooming flowers, the warmth of childhood embraces. Alien warriors remembered dreams of healing, of hands glowing with gentle power, not weapons. Human soldiers found themselves overcome by empathy, feeling the ache of their adversaries as if it were their own. The old boundaries blurred, dissolving in the radiance. It was as if a veil had lifted, revealing not enemies, but people, flawed and hopeful, wounded and longing for peace. From the circle of soldiers, an elder alien stepped forward, robes trailing along the stone. Sage Valen's hair glimmered silver, her eyes ancient and kind. She raised her hands, voice ringing clear and strong. "It is true, what these two have found. Before the division, before the war, we were healers and creators, one people united by compassion and wonder. We have only to remember." Weapons clattered to the ground. Some soldiers reached out, hands trembling, as the connection rippled through them. Tears streaked faces of every color and shape. Someone whispered, "We're not so different." Tarek stood rigid, resisting. The light washed over him, seeping into the cracks in his armor, but he clenched his fists, jaw locked in denial. "You will not take my daughter from me with lies and tricks," he growled, though his voice wavered. Zira stepped forward, eyes never leaving her father's. "I am still your child," she said, voice breaking. "You taught me to look at the stars, to seek truth beyond what I was told. I know you remember." Tarek's breath hitched. For a moment, his fierce facade held. Then a memory flickered across his face, soft light in a nursery, a small hand in his, laughter echoing beneath alien constellations. The tears came, silent and unstoppable. He fell to his knees, shoulders shaking, armor suddenly too heavy to bear. Zira crossed the distance and knelt beside him, wrapping her arms around his broad frame. "Hope never truly dies," she whispered, her own tears falling, mingling with his. Sage Valen turned to the assembled humans and aliens, her voice gentle but commanding. "You have felt the truth. Now you must choose, unity or the old ways. The future is not yet written." Commander Hayes stepped forward, conflicted but resolute. He looked at Lucas, then at the pool shimmering with living energy. Slowly, he knelt and placed his hand in the water. The crystals flared, and his breath caught in wonder. I see it," he murmured, tears glinting in his eyes. One by one, others followed. Alien warriors, human soldiers, their hands trembling as they touched the pool, the crystals, each other. The chamber filled with gasps, laughter, sobs, raw and honest. Grudges faded, wounds eased, and new bonds began to form in the luminous hush. Tarek remained on his knees, face wet with grief and awe. At last, he surrendered, lowering his head to the stone. The light found him, and his anguish faded into hope. The cycle of violence was broken, if only for this group, in this moment. Soldiers, once enemies, sat together on the crystal-lit floor, trading stories of family, of dreams left behind, of what peace might look like if they dared to build it. Lucas and Zira stood together, hands still joined, watching as the change they had seeded took root before their eyes. The cavern, once a place of hiding and fear, now echoed with the sound of healing and the first fragile notes of unity. Their connection, improbable, impossible, unstoppable, had become the beginning of something greater. The ancient mountain became a sanctuary, its crystal-lit chambers echoing with a new kind of energy, a gentle hum of voices, laughter, cautious hope. Where once there had been only hiding and fear, now human and alien soldiers moved through the tunnels as companions, tentative but determined to nurture the awakening that had swept through them. The air felt different, charged with possibility rather than dread. Sage Valen spent her days deep in the mountain's archives, poring over time-worn texts that had not been touched in centuries. She traced the faded symbols with reverent fingers, eyes bright with the thrill of rediscovery. Supreme Warden Tarek, his armor traded for simpler robes, worked at her side. Together, they translated forgotten wisdom, treatises on healing, rituals of peace, philosophies that once guided their ancestors before war had become law. Their hushed debates drifted through the corridors, drawing the curious and the wounded alike. Hatred did not vanish overnight. Some soldiers kept to themselves, mistrust lingering in their eyes. Old wounds ached in the quiet hours, and uneasy silences sometimes stretched long around the communal fires. But there were small gestures, an alien tending a human's bruised ankle, a human sharing a canteen of water with a former foe, that hinted at a world remade, one fragile kindness at a time. The seeds of transformation had been sown, and though progress was slow, it was unmistakable. Lucas and Zira slipped away whenever they could, seeking solace in the less-traveled tunnels or beneath the pale glow of the twin moons. They walked hand in hand along winding ledges, the boundary between human and alien dissolving with every step. Each night, the mountain revealed new wonders, a garden of luminescent fungi, a waterfall that sang as it fell, a hidden alcove where crystals chimed in the breeze. Their laughter filled these secret places, echoing off the stone, weaving a new story where once there had been only conflict. In the privacy of their shared sanctuary, their love deepened. Lucas would brush a stray strand of Zira's purple hair from her cheek as they sat beside the pool, the memory of their first connection shimmering between them. Sometimes, he would press his palm to hers, feeling the faint pulse of energy that still linked them, an unbroken current, steady and reassuring. One night, as they lay beneath a canopy of crystals, Zira traced the curve of Lucas's jaw, her luminous eyes searching his face. "There will be those who resist," she warned, her voice barely more than a whisper in the quiet. "Not everyone wants change. Some will fight to hold on to the past." Lucas squeezed her hand, his thumb brushing the soft skin between her fingers. "Then we'll show them a new way," he promised. Together. Their bond was as healing as any power they had awakened, gentle touches by the water's edge, whispered promises when the world felt uncertain, laughter that rang brighter than any crystal in the cavern. In the hush between words, they found a peace that neither had ever known before. Lucas would sometimes wake in the middle of the night to find Zira watching him, her gaze tender and fierce, as if she were memorizing the shape of hope. As days passed, more came to join them. News of the awakening spread beyond the mountain's shadow, drawing both the curious and the desperate. Humans and aliens arrived singly or in pairs, some limping, others wary, all bearing the invisible scars of battle. They brought stories, of family lost, of betrayals survived, of dreams deferred by war. In the great central chamber, now bright with the collective light of so many lives, Zira and Lucas welcomed each new arrival with open hands. The ancient rituals returned, transformed by the present. At night, soldiers sat together around the fire, trading stories instead of threats. Sage Valen taught the old healing songs, her voice weaving through the cavern as bandages were wrapped and old injuries soothed. Children, human and alien, played by the edge of the glowing pool, their laughter proof that the future could be something other than fear. Lucas found himself changed in ways he could not have imagined. Once he had measured his worth in lives saved on the battlefield, wounds stitched, pain dulled. Now, he healed in different ways, by listening, by guiding, by daring to hope out loud. When a young alien soldier hesitated to share her fears, he knelt beside her, offering comfort not with medicine, but with the simple truth of his own doubt and perseverance. Zira watched him, pride and love mingling in her eyes. Zira herself grew into her new role, her voice carrying authority born not of command, but of compassion. She spoke to her people of the old wisdoms rediscovered, of a strength that did not require cruelty. She and Tarek, once divided by pride and pain, found a tentative reconciliation, father and daughter, both remade by loss and the courage to change. One evening, as the twin moons climbed high and bathed the mountain in silver, Lucas and Zira stood in the ancient chamber at the heart of it all. The air was thick with understanding, each crystal reflecting the faces of those gathered, humans and aliens, warriors and healers, old rivals and new friends. Light danced between them, as if the mountain itself breathed with hope. Lucas turned to Zira, his heart full, the memory of all they had endured and the promise of what might still be. "Do you believe this will last?" he asked quietly. Zira's fingers traced the line of his jaw, her gaze unwavering. "I believe in what we build together, in every small choice. That's where hope lives." He pulled her close, their foreheads touching, the world narrowing to the warmth of her breath, the steady beat of her heart. In that embrace, the past no longer mattered, nor the uncertainty of tomorrow. There was only the now, bright, fragile, and brimming with possibility. Outside, others continued to arrive, drawn by stories of healing and peace. The war still raged beyond the mountain's borders, but here, a new journey had begun. Lucas and Zira, no longer just medic and warrior, but partners, lovers, and catalysts, led the way, guiding those willing to try toward a future shaped by connection, not conflict. Beneath the rising moons, with the mountain aglow behind them, they embraced, a promise to each other and to the future. The awakening had begun, and together they would guide others toward the light. This brings our story to a close. Don't forget to hit subscribe, give the video a like, and share in the comments which part you enjoyed the most. Our team will truly appreciate your support. There are plenty more exciting stories waiting for you on our channel. See you in the next video.